Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Melinda. Melinda is a licensed therapist. She's working with couples on relationships. She's using psychoanalysis and mindfulness in her therapies. She's based in Miami, and we met through networking. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Melinda. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
So my first question for you is, what is healthy relationship and unhealthy? What are the healthy and unhealthy boundaries?
Right, so that is such a big question. And if we knew all these things right away, we would only pick healthy relationships. So the way I like to say it is, how do I know if I'm in a healthy relationship? Well, first of all, I need to take a step back and ask myself, this person that I'm with, do they bring out the best in me? Do they bring out my best sides? Do they emphasize my relationships with others? Do they help me better at work? Do I feel more energetic with them? So really looking into yourself and saying, what is the impact this person has on me? And I think that's something we oftentimes don't do. I think we're so focused on, am I making that person happy? And that is a question that we always want to stay mindful of as well, but it's not our first priority. Our first priority is, what impact does that person have on me? And if you're wondering too about specifics, I have laid out specific things on my Instagram. So you can go to @therapywithmelinda and find out the exact bullet points. But really knowing the impact that they have on you and what they're bringing out. Also, another point I want to bring up that I think is really important is, where is the control in the relationship? Do I feel very pressured to be a certain person when I'm dating this person? Does this person want me to be something that I'm not, or something that I don't really feel is my authentic self? So really analyzing, do I feel some control, or if that's kind of hard to answer, do I feel pressured? Do I feel pressured to be something, to wear something, to look some way? So I think those are like the two big questions I would ask, like, what impact do they have on me? And then this idea of control and pressure. And we can kind of go from there. And like I said, for more really specific details on healthy and unhealthy boundaries, I wrote them out for you line by line as well. But I want to posit those two questions first.
Thank you so much for your answer. Where the idea of how relationships supposed to look like it's coming from? What are the roots?
What are the rules in what a relationship is supposed to look like? Well, let's go back to what we're used to. Right. Oftentimes, where do we learn relationship styles? We learn them from a very, very young age. A lot of who we are is developed by the age of 6, our core self. So that means, who do we learn from? We learn from our family of origin, the people who we're blood with, if we grew up with them, or our family of choice, or some guardian. So those people who are really around us from a young age, we're learning to them. That's what we're seeing is normal. That's how we're learning roles in a relationship. So I don't really know about the rules. We have a lot of cultural rules and a lot of cultural norms and a lot of cultural pressures. But I think, how do we learn and how our relationships developed? Well, I would look back at our childhood. What are we used to? What do we see? What were our friends' families like? People around us have a really large impact on what we define as what we're used to, what we've seen.
What is the meaning of sex and the relationship for gender, for women, men, or transgender, and why we have so much trouble with understanding the different needs, desires of opposite sex?
Right. Because first off, sex is not physical. Sex is actually between your ears. So when somebody comes to me for sexual challenges, which is really what I specialize in, I always say sex is between your ears. You're actually having your pleasure or uncomfortability or orgasm between your ears. Yes, you're having this physical response. So it's going to be completely different for men and women, because men and women are different. Our bodies are different. So if you are in a heterosexual relationship with a man and woman, some challenges you may find are men are able to think of one topic at a time. Their corpus callosum, what is right here, is much more narrow than women. So that means they focus on one task. Women, our corpus callosum is larger. So we are able to focus on more tasks. Can be helpful sometimes. We like to say we're multitaskers. I don't really know how good at it that we are, but we're able to hold more thoughts in our brain, while men are able to hold less. So they're often work, something else, and then sex. So maybe they don't require a lot of foreplay. Maybe they're able to go from the stress from work right into having sex. And you can find some women aren't able to do that as well, right? Maybe they're at work, stressed with the family, stressed with friends, whatever it may be. That all can be in there, and sex. So sometimes you'll find men are able to shift into it more when women kind of need more of maybe that lead up, which could be some form of romance or some form of foreplay. But this really creates a lot of challenges in relationships, because when men may be initiated too quickly, the women aren't there, they say no, men can feel rejected, or this can be vice versa as well. But it is different for men and women because our bodies are just different. So that's a few things, just to name the least of why it's different for men and women. And then really when you get into the individual person, it's really what that person desires or what that person requires before. I always say your foreplay actually starts in the morning if you have a live-in partner. So it starts when you wake up if you have a live-in partner. If not, if you're going on a date, it may start by texting before that day. So there's actually a lot of lead up to it.
That's super interesting what you just said about the consciousness and the importance of role play. I have questions about especially me after being sexually abused and raped by ex-partner. I've been for a while dealing with this issue of trust and enjoying sex again with my new partner. So the group we are focusing to make the interview, we are a group of women who have been dealing with sexual abuse or rape, molestation in early age. How can we enjoy sex again after being abused? So using your therapy.
Yes. And I think this is really, really important because it's something that I see. I mean, 1 in 3 women have been in some form of sexual abuse. And
wow.
That's a lot of women, and 1 in 4 men. So this is something that I see way, way too often. And it really carries through to the next relationship because it was a trauma that we experienced. That trauma, maybe it's not in your conscious mind. It might not be in your conscious brain, but your trauma actually lives in your muscles. So it will live in your muscles. So how do we get triggered? Well, maybe we're out of that relationship, but we're in a new relationship, or we're just around somebody, dating, whatever, and somebody touches us. Now, if somebody touches me in the part that was abused, my mind is going to be instantly triggered and brought back. So one of the things I do when I work with survivors is I have an outline of a figure, of a person, and I ask them, please highlight on here for yourself, for your partner, and for me, what parts of your body you don't want touched, because it is a trigger. Because we know that this lives in the muscles. So it is very easily to be then triggered again when we try to have intimacy or any type of sexual experience with somebody in the future. So how do we get rid of this trauma that's in our muscles? And yes, of course, talk therapy talk therapy, coming to a therapist, talking through things, of course, using our coping skills, all the things like that. But sometimes the trauma will just live in the muscle and it'll live in your limbic system. And talk therapy is not enough all the time for everybody. So if you've been to therapy, if you've used, still experiencing some of the triggers and negative emotions, try looking at techniques called EMDR or hypnotherapy. These are two therapies that work in your unconscious and your subconscious mind. So EMDR and hypnotherapy will really help you get into your unconscious mind and start healing those wounds and really taking away that trigger sensation. So when somebody touches me, my mind doesn't instantly go back to the trigger. And those therapies are really common nowadays. I practice hypnotherapy. So you come in, yes, you do lay on the couch, but I put you into a nice little relaxation and, in a very relaxing place. And we work through that trauma. You follow my guidance. It's a very positive experience and it's very effective. If you're not into hypnotherapy, EMDR, there's a lot of trauma therapists out there that practice EMDR, and that's also very, very effective. So I would encourage you, if you are one of these men or women who are still struggling after talk therapy, after coping skills, check out therapists.
Right. Or what if you have actually flashbacks, or what if I have girlfriends who are right now in relationship with the abuser, who sometimes sexually will abuse them because they don't know how to say no, or when they say it's not really understood by their partner, and every time they go to bed they get panic attack, like they will start to breathe and having pounding heart. So what could for somebody who's listening us and is in this kind of situation, is afraid to be in bed with the partner, what advice could you give?
To be in bed with a partner that's not abusive, correct?
Right, correct.
So after you have a trauma, your body stays on a survivalistic place. So your body stays on hyper alert because it wants to protect you. It said, wait, I remember what you went through. I'm going to protect you. And it'll stay in a hyper alert. But that's very painful. It's very anxiety provoking. It'll cause flashbacks, things like that. So what do we get to do? We have to work to calm the body down. So doing all the therapies before, but what do you do in that moment? Sometimes when we go into those panic attacks, the best thing we can do is really just breathe and bring our body, the physical part, down. We never treat a panic attack in the panic attack. So practice when you're calm. Practice breathing exercises. I love one that's called 4, 7, 8. You breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. I like that one, but practice it when you're calm, so that when that moment comes at night, you already have learned the skill so that you can bring it in, because the only goal in that moment with the panic attack is to calm your body down. The other work can be done with a therapist. The other work can be done when you're practicing self-care, journaling, other things like that. But in that moment, know that it's normal to have that. It's normal that your body is going to do that. And the only thing that we really should focus on in that moment is, how do we calm back down? So even if you're just laying in bed, telling yourself, like, I'm safe, and breathing, and slowly breathing, like belly breathing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's a great exercise for anybody watching us right now, and it's simple to do, and mindfulness and breath work. Is it not amazing?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I have to say, like, breath work is actually really hard, because if you're anxious, you're going to be like, and we breathe from our chest, but that makes us more anxious. So put your hands even on your belly. Make sure you're doing a belly breath. Make sure it's not coming from here and it's coming from your abdomen. And you're breathing in for 4, holding for 7, breathing slowly out for 8. Doing that just 3 times, and then taking a break, doing it again 3 times, taking a break. It's really effective. Really, really effective.
Wait. So you said 4, breathe in, and then hold it 8 for 8 and breathe out?
So you breathe in for 4, and then you hold for 7.
7, okay.
Breathe out for 8.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of amazing YouTube videos that are like 2 or 3 minutes if you want to get more information. I like that one. I think it's fast. I think it's fairly easy to learn. It's easy to memorize.
How is sex? How can we enjoy sex with disabled partner? How disability, sexual disability, can affect sex?
How can someone who has a disability affect sex?
Yeah, and how can we still enjoy our sex life with our partner who is disabled?
I absolutely love that you asked that question, because I think it's so important, and so many of us have some disability. So whether it's we're in a wheelchair, so it's very visible, or maybe we have some internal disability like any digestional things, or I work with a lot of young men who have erectile dysfunction, maybe because of an injury or maybe because of anxiety. And I have to tell you, there are so many tools that are fabulous, and there's so many tools. So depending on what your disability is, I'm sure there's a tool to help you with sex. Also, remember, there's this whole beautiful thing called outer course. So sex does not always have to be penetration. Sex does not always have to be something that is inserted, right? So you can have a wonderful orgasm. It can be a wet orgasm for a man or not, but you can have like a beautiful time even with outer course. A man does not have to be erect to have an orgasm, right? Because remember, it's in the mind. So just because you don't have what we call a wet orgasm doesn't mean that the man can't be pleasured. So I think if you have a disability, please look out for resources, because they are out there. And there are a whole field of therapists that work with men and women who do have disabilities that makes sex a little bit more challenging on the outside, but just is pleasurable.
Perfect. The reason I'm asking you is actually because my partner is sexually disabled. So that's why I can relate to many women who want to enjoy sex and cannot have normal intercourse.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it is much more common than society likes to talk about. So I encourage you guys to ask these questions and get out there. And if you have a success story and you feel comfortable sharing it, share it, because it could really change somebody's whole emotional part of their life.
What are the consequences or withdrawing or not having, withdrawing sex from your partner?
From withdrawing sex from a partner? Well, I would ask why you all of a sudden are withdrawing sex. If you were having sex at the beginning of the relationship and then withdrawing.
Right? Yeah. Let's assume that you use sex to get what, like, get things you want to get from your partner, and in the point he doesn't gives you those things, you start to withdraw.
Yeah, and I think sex is mental. So that means if we're withdrawing sex, what else are we withdrawing? Are we withdrawing emotionally from our partner? Are we feeling fearful of our partner? Are we feeling controlled of our partner? So remember, sex is kind of just the red flag that we notice, but there's a lot going into it first. That something is going on first, and sex is kind of like the first thing that we see.
What are those red flags we can recognize before going into toxic relationship, or are there any red flags we could recognize from the therapy you are?
Yeah, some of the red flags that maybe we're entering a toxic relationship. Yeah, because sometimes we don't always know. And I always say, great sex does not equal a good relationship. So maybe we have fabulous sex with somebody, but that does not mean a good relationship. You know, some of the warning signs that we don't see first, sometimes our friends, family, coworkers, boss will point out, hey, something's different, you know, or hey, I'm a little, you know, this concerned about this. So listening to other people, I think, is important to an extent. And sometimes they can see our blind spots. You know, sometimes if we feel ourselves changing, feeling like, you know, I need to do this to make that other person happy, or I need to do this to be more attractive to that person, or thinking, what does that person want me to be like? These are just some of the questions you can ask yourself. Also, you know, am I withdrawing from my family, my friends? Is my work suffering? So you can kind of see isolation is a big warning sign. Maybe if we're suffering at work, that could be a warning sign. Sometimes even not sleeping well. If I'm not sleeping well and I'm kind of having a hard time falling asleep, sometimes a lot of our difficult emotions are sitting in our subconscious mind when we're relaxing. So sometimes guilt will come out at nighttime, making it hard for me to sleep. Maybe my eating habits will change. So your eating habits, whether you're eating more or less. Some of us eat for comfort. So am I eating more for comfort? Am I emotionally eating? You know, there are a lot of signs that go on, but we're often not aware of them. So maybe even like writing some of these signs that are relative for you, whether you see I give up plans with my friends, or I start showing up late for work. I find myself eating more, working out less. I don't go to my hobby anymore. Maybe even like writing them down and kind of seeing and doing a checklist when you get into a new relationship, because we don't always see it. If we saw it, we would get out of it at the beginning, but we don't always see it.
Could you, Melinda, share with us the idea of consequence of friends with benefits relationship? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Because nowadays, I've been one time with this kind of relationship. A lot of my girlfriends, they quit because of they decide that they don't want to compromise, or whatever reason it was. What are the consequences and advantages and disadvantages of?
Yeah, I think it's funny you asked that, because my next podcast, Melinda in Miami, I have a sex podcast, and the next one is having sex with strangers and having sex with your best friend. And one of the things I talk about in that podcast is, you know, we as a society, we like to put people into roles. So this is my friend, this is my boyfriend, this is my boss, like this is my acquaintance, right? So we put people into roles. You can find yourself really doing that maybe when you want to be a girlfriend. So, but then we have a friend. We know them as a friend. The relationship exists as a friendship. Now we're all of a sudden starting to sleep together. Now the relationship starts to become a little bit more muddy. And then that opens it up for having a difference in opinion, right? Difference in a dynamic. Do we know how to have this friends with benefits dynamic? You know, it's because we're shifting. Sometimes if we enter a friends with benefit right away, we know that dynamic. But when we shift, it can cause confusion, and the two people have to agree, right? Because we already agreed to be friends.
Right.
Now, are we going to both agree to be friends with benefits? And what does that outline look like? You may not always agree on what that relationship looks like. So that opens you up for risk of possibly losing a friend. Or if I go into a friends with benefits, maybe I start to grieve some of the friendship, because some of the friendship dies. One of the problems that I talk about on the podcast that can come up is, am I monogamous then with this person? Or am I allowed to sleep and date with other people? This can also be where we don't always agree. And if we don't agree, does that put our friendship at risk? So there are a lot of pieces that when we shift from one role to the next, that we open it up, that we won't always agree. And if we don't agree, can that jeopardize the friendship? But if we do agree, what is that outline look like? Are we going to talk about, hey, we're going to be friends with benefits, but I'm also looking for somebody, so I'm going to date and have sex with other people? So I would say if this happens, if you are in this situation or you're thinking about it, really opening up the communication and knowing that we'll shift the role. Sometimes it's hard to go back. So we're almost kind of grieving that just friendship role that was created.
Awesome. I personally learned so much. Sandra, are you with us?
Hello?
Sandra, hello. Do you have
Yes.
any, how are you? Are you having any questions, any feedback so far?
Oh my God, it's really a really amazing, great topic. I'm really enjoying it so much. She asked a lot, oh my God, a lot of good questions, and it was in my mind certain things like, you know, having sex with your partner, and it's so normal after having a sexual assault that for a long time not wanting sex. So yeah, you covered that, and then you meet someone, and then you meet someone and you realize, oh, this is the person that I really like, and a lot of healing can come up from it. And that's what I found myself, that it can come up. And when you said you think you dealt with something, and then when you realize are with someone, it can come up like to surface to heal. That's what I find you know, when I started going out with my partner, like. But yeah, it's really great.
Thank you. And, you know, I want to comment on that. You brought up a really good point of, you know, I thought I was healed. And then when I came with my partner, I realized I had stuff. And, you know, as we go through life, the healing can take different phases. So if I'm working on healing as an individual, now I'm also working on later on healing of being fully healed to be in the next relationship and what that would
Yeah, no, it's so weird because like before that I was with someone, and it was 3.5 years, but it's so common, right? I didn't realize it's so weird when you're in it, when you're being in that situation. The subconscious actually protects you from other relationships. And I didn't realize for a long time that I'd been attracting people that couldn't commit, that had other problems of sexual intimacy or didn't want to go there. I was saying, what the hell? And you know what I mean? And I'm looking back, I was attracted that, you know what I mean? Because I felt like that inside, which is, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, what I'm trying to say is, it's weird that sometimes you can bury stuff, and when you go out with different people at different time, you attract these people because you feel safe with them, because you're not there at the moment and they're the same level as you, if you know what I mean.
right.
What?
And life is always throwing things at us, so we're always learning. And I think to never get hard on ourselves for what happened in our past.
No, I'm not. Like, it's just interesting. It's very interesting.
And I think every experience we go through makes us stronger. So using all the power and to go forward.
Like for me personally, yeah, when I went with my partner, I'm with him a while now, and I must say I did have like, don't get me wrong, I've overcame so much since I went with him, but it felt so right being with him because we connected in every level, but it was the sexual part I had major things, and it's because it's not because I didn't want to go there, it's because of the experience with my last fellas that didn't want to go there. And I remember my last one, I did eventually, and he didn't. So that kind of, because I wasn't used to it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's just, I know I've overcame and that kind of thing, but I find because he has been sick for so long with the whooping cough and that kind of thing, it's like, oh my God, we haven't done it in a while, and it's like, geez, it's kind of them kind of feelings are coming back. But what I'm trying to say, that's the old me. If you know what I'm trying to say, I know that's the old me, totally. Because like we're in a really trust in the relationship, like, but I've heard people who have been in kind of rape and that, because I've been there, but kind of being in relationships and just having sexual relationship just for the sake of it, because I feel good. Not feel good, but trying to figure out what happened.
Thank you for sharing all that.
I don't know how I came out, but yeah, I'm sure it's good to share.
Well, that's what I always like to say, that we just saying words, naming them, it release so much tension. Like we.
Yeah, no, it was.
Is it not true, Melinda? Is that the therapy with you? Is that this way looks like sharing what I feel in
It really is. It is the power of the mind. So it all starts with our thoughts, and then our body and our emotions follow after that. So really kind of
But
understanding.
isn't it good? But the problem is not being able to be open about it and talk about it. I think that's when the major problem starts. But I think when you can open up to someone, even someone close to you who you're with, is a big, big, big step, because I was only with my partner a short time, and it's like, oh my God, where is this all coming from? Like, I suppose when you're with the person that you trust, or with anyone, I think over time you learn to trust people.
Yeah.
You know, but I suppose, but what I'm trying to, another thing, right? Like, I used to get loads of flashbacks a long time ago, but is it so strange, like, for years not getting them, and then all of a sudden, if you're kind of, just say, a bit stressed, but it's like, yeah, I was told that can happen sometimes, but don't get me wrong, that hasn't happened since. But is that normal?
Of course, and I think you bring up a good point for every survivor to know that maybe we have flashbacks and that we haven't for a while, and they can completely come back. And that's why I always call like maintenance.
Yeah.
We do maintenance work. So yes, it is completely normal. And sometimes that's when the time is to engage in some of our self-care, you know, do some more therapeutic things. Like I sometimes will see somebody once that year, and they'll just kind of check in, or they'll kind of go back to doing some of those breathing exercises, because yes, you know, all of our experience in the past, they don't just go away. You know, this is what happened to me, and this still lives in the experience, is still in me. So yes, it doesn't impact me like it used to, but at times it completely still can, and it is normal, and it's completely manageable and treatable. But it's very frustrating, you know. It can feel very exhausting of, why am I still dealing with this? And I thought I was over this.
No, it's like, don't get me wrong, it's so natural that things come into your mind and then you say, oh, that's the past, and it might not bother you, but what I'm trying to say, like, there was probably a few weeks ago, I was in the gym and I'm here, oh my God, I never got that in such a long time, but I think it's just because my mind was so quiet and I was so focused and maybe see I think when also I think if it's a lot of changes happening in your life, that could be the reason why.
You're right. You're very much right. Changes, right? We're adapting to a new scenario. We're finding our new comfort level, and completely having changes can bring up
Yeah.
anxiety in general. And then once we already have that anxiety, other things can come up as well. I think I love the points you're bringing up. I think they're very relevant and they're so real.
Well,
Yeah, for example, I know I'm going on a bit, but for example, like, yeah, I'm living with my partner and it's great. Like, I have no fear or anything, but um, it was so weird. Like, we're getting our own place and that, and it's like, okay, where's that fear coming from? But I dealt with it, like, which is good. I done therapy exercise, I wrote down the poem, but I think it's because he had fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if someone else has fear in the relationship of moving in together, oh God, is having their own place, I think that can bring up for you, if you know what I mean. But that's normal.
It it is. It's kind of it can happen in our par for the course, and I love the saying of like reminding ourselves like I'm safe. I am safe now. I have learned. I'm a survivor. I'm stronger.
Yeah, and that's so true.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing and
I
your
don't know where that all came from, but it did.
and what's interesting, the culture factor. Like you, Sandra, right now you are in Ireland. I'm Polish nationally. You, Melinda, you are American, correct? So
I'm Miami.
I was wondering how we, as a woman from different cultures and um, any different color of skins, how can we still declare our sexual desires, needs, and not allow kind of submissive role of woman, um, culture, think direct your own way of subjective expressing your feelings, your sexual desires, your sexual drives.
Well,
How,
culture will always have an impact on us. I'm a huge believer that whatever culture we live in, whatever culture our home is going to have a direct impact on how we feel. I mean, here in Miami, I talk a lot on my podcast and everywhere, if you've seen my brand, a lot about how the cultural impact here is to look a certain way, to have a certain body, to have so much money. Now, these things, we feel this pressure to be this way, so it can create some anxiety. And with that, you know, of course, our sex life goes into that as well of, well, what do I think my partner wants? What are the other men and women doing around me? So if I'm having multiple partners, well, what are they getting from other men and women? You know, and we can kind of feel that we want to even be in the cultural norm in our sex life. And I get that a lot. You know, I get a lot sitting, a lot of people on my couch talking about how I want to look like this porn star because this porn star is sexy to me. So it's a lot about, okay, well, you know, all these cultural pressures create a lot of anxiety. And how realistic was that porno? Right? Like I tell everybody, porn is not real. Porn is your entertainment.
right.
So never trying to do that. So I think just always, yes, culture is going to have an impact on you, and don't ever downplay that. Pay attention to, but also paying attention to what do I like? And you know, sometimes we have to experiment with ourselves or experiment with a toy or experiment with our partner about what we do like. So yes, culture has an impact, but sex is such an individualistic person that try not to allow the cultural pressures that you live in to also enter into your sex life.
Perfect. I have so many questions, but I'm watching the time.
Thank you. It was
I
so,
know-
you two are beautiful women. Thank you for talking to me today.
Well, last
Yes.
question, how can we find you? How can we connect with you except Instagram?
Yeah, so my Instagram, like I'll say it again, it's @therapywithmelinda. You can check out my sex podcast. I just finished talking about BDSM. That was a big hot topic lately, which is called Melinda in Miami. It's on Apple, Spotify. But to get everything, you can always go to the website, and I can send you the link, but it's insight-miami.com. I'm Melinda DeSeta, so if you Google my name, I'm sure something will pop up. I'm big on Instagram and my podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melinda, for this amazing, full of knowledge interview. And that's just a try of real therapy, which any of us watching can start with you. And I will put the link for your website and your Instagram below the video. Thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your survivor story. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra.
And good luck with your interview.
Thank
good
you.
Luck.
All right,
So,
thank you, women.
Tell us which podcast are you going to? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, so this coming podcast is sex with strangers and having sex with your friends. So I thought it was really great you brought up that topic.
And how can we watch you there?
Check out, it's called Melinda in Miami. You can find it on Apple and Spotify. I think it's on like 6 different, but Apple and Spotify are the big ones.
Perfect.
Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. You can look up my business. It's Insight Counseling Center. Or like my name is Melinda DeSeta. You can also find me there as well.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Great
both.
stuff. I loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much,
really
Melinda.
got a lot out.
Appreciate your time and sorry for the technical problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.